Welcome to part 4 of your fantasy football pre-draft training series. In this video, I'm going to show you how to project touchdowns using running back Arian Foster as an example. It's important to note that touchdowns are a relatively low-frequency event. Even the top scorers convert only around 4% of their carries into touchdowns, and as I discussed in a previous video, low-frequency events are generally susceptible to randomness. Touchdowns in particular are very dependent on team strength and red zone looks. The good news is that we can use the same general formula to project touchdowns for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. All you need to do is multiply their opportunities by their touchdown rate. By opportunities, I mean the number of overall touches of a particular type, whether they be passes, carries, or receptions. If you're trying to project touchdown passes, for example, you'd use all quarterback passing attempts as your opportunities. Touchdown rate is the percentage of opportunities a player converts into touchdowns. To calculate it, you simply divide touchdowns by opportunities, then multiply it by 100. For example, if a running back scores 20 rushing touchdowns on 300 carries, his touchdown rate will be 20 divided by 300, or 0.067 times 100, or 6.7%. Remember, when we calculate a player's average opportunities and touchdown rate, we want to use the mean from the past 3 seasons. If the player in question had 1,000 touches over the past 3 seasons, for example, his 3-year average would be 1,000 divided by 3, or 333 total touches. Let's look at Arian Foster. Remember, our goal when projecting any player is to determine the most likely outcome for him in the upcoming season, so that's why we use 3-year averages. For example, Foster recently recorded a career-high 351 carries, but that's something he's unlikely to replicate in future seasons. Instead, Foster's carries will probably be closer to his average of the past 3 years of 319. In addition to carries, we also need to accurately predict Foster's touchdown rate, or the percentage of carries he takes into the end zone. Remember, you calculate rushing touchdown rate by simply dividing rushing touchdowns by total carries. Foster's touchdown rate over the past 3 seasons is extraordinary at 4.3%. Again, that's his total rushing touchdowns divided by his total number of carries, then multiplied by 100. Once we make our initial projections for carries and touchdown rate, we simply multiply the two to get Foster's projected rushing touchdowns. You can see that our initial touchdown projection for Foster is 13.7. However, don't forget that this is simply a baseline projection, a foundation to build off of. After creating a baseline, we must refine our projection with relevant information. One such piece of information relevant to Foster's touchdown projection is that he's seen an unusually high number of red zone carries. Even after factoring in the strength of the Texans' offense, Foster's carries inside the 20 and inside the 5 especially have been quite high. It's pretty unlikely that he'll see another 26 carries inside the 5-yard line. That number is actually 11 higher than Adrian Peterson's total. Plus, coming off of a 351 carry season, you'd expect Foster's overall workload to decrease a bit. The running back averaged only 4.1 yards per carry, and it's probable that the Houston coaches will want to limit the wear and tear placed on Foster. After adjusting Foster's touchdown rate to account for his recent red zone luck and likely decreased workload, we multiply that rate, which is 3.5%, by Foster's projected carries, or his opportunities. The result is a final rushing touchdown projection of 11.2 touchdowns. Remember, you can use the same method we just used to project Arian Foster's touchdowns to predict touchdowns for every other position. The formula is simply opportunities multiplied by touchdown rate. For receivers, you'd substitute catches in for carries, and for quarterbacks, you'd use pass attempts. It's also important to note that the predictability of yards and touchdowns isn't the same. A projection is only useful insofar as it is predictable, so it's important to factor the year-to-year consistency of each stat into your projections. However, I advise to project stats as if they're completely predictable, as we've just done here, and then revise them later. In subsequent videos, I'll show you how to use consistency to change your projections into rankings. Thanks for choosing FantasyKnuckleheads.com as your fantasy football training provider. Check out the forums if you have any questions or comments.